Pittsburgh Steeler fans, it is time once again for another edition of Know Your Enemy. Of course, my name is Michael Beck, deputy editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, joined as always by our film guru, the mastermind at the true mastermind at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, one Mr. Jeffrey Benedict. Jeffrey, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
And I want to make sure I get this right. From Buffalo Rumblings, Dan Lavoie. Did I get that right?
It actually is Lavoie. I don't go by the Canadian French one, but it's all good. Dan Lavoie here from Buffalo Rumblings.
Yeah, if you can see the hockey jersey behind my jersey there, I'm Canadian, so that's why I went for the Lavoie. Darn it. Anyway, Dan, pleasure to have you on this evening. Right off the top, Steelers, Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Is that home field advantage the same in Buffalo than it was a year ago without the fans there?
I don't think it'll ever be the same. No. When the whole place is rocking, you just cannot beat it, and we're gonna miss it this week for sure.
Yeah, and it's been like that for really everyone all year long. But Jeffrey, when we head into this game here, the Steelers have been struggling. Can they turn it around against a Bills team that has been extremely well and blasting on all cylinders so far this year?
Well, Steven Nelson is back. If they get Joe Hayden back, Joe Hayden is so big on our defense. He's so important to what we do. If Joe Hayden and Nelson are both playing, yes, we have a shot at this. The offense is obviously going to have to step up, but with a full week, an actual real week to prepare for this game, I think the Steelers have a chance.
Now, Dan, obviously one of the guys that have been playing pretty well for those Buffalo Bills, one Mr. Josh Allen. Can you talk about how good he's been this year and why he's one of those MVP candidates?
Yeah, he's freaking amazing. I don't know what else to say other than you and I all know how bad he looked early in his career. Mechanically, he's just turned everything around, and he's so much more accurate than he used to be. He's reading defenses better. He's a lot more comfortable in this offense, and he has weapons. I think just the team built around him is so strong now that he's in his element, and that's making him dangerous any given week.
Now, Jeffrey, is this a guy that we're able to contain, or is there any possibility you can stop Josh Allen?
You can try and contain him. Honestly, I've been saying for years, Josh Allen reminds me of Ben Roethlisberger. He was that big, athletic, strong-armed, gunslinger kind of a guy who could make plays, but didn't really know how to play football. Wasn't really a great quarterback yet. And he's turned to that corner. He is turning that corner. And the dangerous thing with them is with Stephon Diggs, he's found his guy. He finally has a receiver that is, kind of his guy, like we saw Ben have with Antonio Brown, and we see Ben not having right now. So I think Josh Allen is probably the most dangerous quarterback we face this season. Actually, I think that's pretty clearly the case. I said that, and then I'm thinking, wait a minute, no, that's absolutely the case.
Now, there's obviously a lot of praise going around for Josh Allen. Dan, if you can look in your crystal ball, is Josh Allen going to hoist a Lombardi one day?
Man, I would love nothing more than to see that. I don't know how it would feel for you guys, but for a Buffalo Bills fan who's never gotten to taste that glory, I would love nothing more than to see that. At the very least, he's going to rewrite some record books in Buffalo before he's out.
Basically, the same question to you, Jeffrey. Is Ben done hoisting his Lombardis, or I know it's all doom and gloom because the Steelers lost one game now, but is there still a chance that the old 17-year gunslinger gets another one in before he calls it quits?
This is still their best shot. This year is that year. Still got time to turn it around, like I talked about last week. There are teams. Once you make the playoffs, what matters is how you play in the playoffs. The rest of the season doesn't really matter. Like the odds that even if we went and lost every game from here on out, the odds that we make the playoffs are pretty good. Like, so, right now it's not so much a big deal of getting this righted right now and start winning games. It's making sure this team is ready to go in a playoff and when we get to the playoffs, because we're going to get there.
Now, Dan, we were talking about those weapons that Josh Allen now has. Of course, Stephon Diggs being that big name, the new guy in town. What has he done to this offense, and why have the Bills been able to evolve with him in that wide receiver room?
I think the biggest thing that he brings to this team has actually been that he took two pretty good starters that the Bills already had with John Brown and Cole Beasley, and he made those the number 2 and the number 3 guys. The Bills also have a pretty promising rookie receiver, Gabriel Davis, who has 3 touchdowns in the last 4 weeks. So right now, John Brown is injured on injured reserve. So it's been Davis asked to step up, and he's done that. But I think Diggs just sets that example for the whole group of receivers, for the whole skill position set. And he just opens up by being that go-to guy who can get 100 yards every week. Everyone else is able to thrive behind that.
Now, Jeffrey, if Joe Hayden's not good to go in this game, is Stephon Diggs feasting, or how do you see kind of those defensive matchups playing out with those big play receivers in Buffalo?
I just talked about this in a film room that's going to be coming out shortly. But Joe Hayden is huge, not just against cornerbacks, but against tight ends and running backs, because there's a reason the Steelers play Vince Williams on his side. As we all know, Joe Hayden gets interceptions jumping those short out routes from the slot or from tight ends or from running backs. He makes plays on those balls. Last game, when we lost to Washington, when Joe Hayden went down, they went straight at Vince Williams with out routes, because when Joe Hayden's in there, he doesn't have to worry about those. Hayden jumps those, Terrell Edmonds covers deep, and Williams just has to worry about the middle of the field. With Joe Hayden out, Cameron Sutton was following those guys and not jumping those routes, and they absolutely targeted that area of the field, and that's how they had their J.D. McKissick or whatever, their running back. You know, he's nobody. He's not a big name. He's not a huge threat, but he 70 yards on us because we really couldn't stop him with Joe Hayden out there. So Joe Hayden is important for the entire defense. He's one of the most important defenders on this team.
Now, Dan, another guy on your Bills offense, Devin Singletary, of course. I believe Zach Moss is behind him. Well, what has Singletary done in year 2, and has he been able to evolve and take his game to a new level?
He actually hasn't yet, which was a bit of a surprise. He looked really promising last year, kind of overtook Frank Gore before the end of the year. The Bills replaced Gore with Zach Moss in the draft this year, but I think because Josh Allen has taken that next step, this is a very pass-happy offense now. It used to be ground and pound, and they just are not anymore. Singletary has had trouble finding running room. He's turned it on a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but probably the first half of the season, he did not look good. Zach Moss is also, it's turning it up, but he's still not quite how good he used to look when he was in college. So the running game for the Bills is not very impressive. And if the Steelers can find a way to make Allen uncomfortable, pressure him, make him make some bad throws, the Bills are not very balanced. And that's one way that the Steelers could try to attack the Bills, is make Josh Allen uncomfortable.
Now, Jeffrey, with that in mind, the Steelers, of course, like we talked about earlier, those running backs out of the backfield is what killed the Steelers a week ago. Is there any way they can stop that? Say Joe Hayden's out of the lineup. Is that something the scheme might be able to figure out, or are they just going to be gashed by running backs all year long?
With Robert Spillane out, Robert Spillane is our best running back coverage linebacker. He is great at it. He's a fantastic green dog blitzer. He's good at getting out there, and he's great at changing directions in zone and on those routes. So he's great covering running backs. He's out. He's probably not playing. Joe Hayden, we don't know if he is out. Yeah, we're going to have serious problems with backs coming out of the backfield. That Devin Singletary could be that guy. You could see the tight end Tyler Kroft. The big mistake would be, taking us out of nickel, taking us out of bigger sets, and putting too many wide receivers on the field. But then if Joe Hayden isn't there, I mean, you're putting Justin Lane out there who just forgot to cover people yesterday. He forgot how to do zone assignments in some of the plays. Like, he was really struggling, and they were running a whole bunch of concepts at him that he just wasn't ready for. If Joe Hayden's out, yeah, everything's a problem.
And that's something you're going to have to watch out for because the Bills run, I think, more 4 wide receiver sets than any other team in the league. They love to spread it out, and they will throw passes and screenplays out of the backfield too. So it's a team that likes to outsmart you and try to make those defenders think. And absolutely, they have to watch out for that. I think what's going to come down to it is, can they make enough pressure with their front 7 to throw the Bills off balance, or do they just not have the pieces to them?
Now, Dan, when we look at this matchup too, Steelers and Bills back-to-back year Sunday Night Football, has this become like a premier game in the NFL? Is this something we can expect for years in the future, that Steelers-Bills is one of those big-time games?
Man, I'd love to see that. I mean, just drive down the thruway and there you go. Obviously the Steelers contend every single year, like clockwork. I mean, even last year, it was Duck Hodges' time to shine. And so it didn't have quite the same appeal, but in its own way, it was still like a really fun game to see with all those defensive plays. And I would love to see that kind of Lake Erie brotherhood going on, of some of these teams clustered in that region really showing up and, showing that there's more to the NFL than the NFC East out there for broadcast.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I know. There's been quite a few of those games. Jeffrey, Dan mentioned it, Duck Hodges a year ago. That game essentially ended the Steelers' playoff hopes last year when the Steelers lost to the Bills. That was it. Is this a revenge game by any means? Do you think it's potential that the Steelers might have a little extra in the tank because this is the team that basically ended their year last year?
I don't know. I don't think so. This is such a different season than that was. I don't think any of that really carries over. And this game doesn't have that level of importance, I don't think, to either team. Like we're both pretty secure. Where if you lose this game, well, it hurts, but it's not like your season's over. It's not a big deal. But it should be a good game. I mean, it's a big game just because of the teams that are in it. I think I saw something where it's like the highest winning percentage for a Sunday night team, Sunday night matchup in December, like ever. Oh. In December, like it's one of just, they're both just winning.
Yeah, and that makes for like a 5-star matchup. And two of those guys, Dan, on your defensive side, Tre'Davious White and Josh Norman, a cornerback duo fresh to this year. How have they looked playing on opposite sides?
So in the case of White, I mean, last year, All-Pro, outstanding season, just incredible. This year is not at that same degree. I think he's also, turning it up the last few weeks. That's kind of been the theme for the Bills lately. He has 3 interceptions in the last 4 weeks, and teams are not throwing at him very much. He's kind of on his island at this point. But he's a playmaker, and he just has that clutch gene in him. So you always have to watch out for him. The number 2 corner opposite him has kind of been a hazy spot. They wanted to start Josh Norman, but he's hurt his hamstring like 3 times this year. He also got COVID. So at this point, he's not the starter anymore. The Bills are rolling with Levi Wallace, who's been the starter the last couple of years, and he's doing that job. He kind of got picked on a little bit against the 49ers, but not enough to really affect the outcome. But that is one of the weaker links. If you're going to be attacking the defense, your best bet is just stay away from White.
Now, if the Steelers have to throw the ball, Jeffrey, to knock off the Bills, are they going to start replacing receivers that can't hold onto the ball? Because obviously drops have been an issue. 16 total drops the last 2 weeks. Is that what it's going to come down to if guys can't hang onto the ball?
Well, we saw the Steelers play James Washington more last week. He's not dropping the ball. Ben just didn't throw to him. So they can do what they want. The offense is designed the way it is, and it's designed for receivers like Deontay Johnson and Eric Ebron to thrive. And as long as they're dropping passes, that's huge. That's drive stoppers. The Steelers are living off of short routes. And when you're gaining 4 or 5 yards a pass, you can't have a drop. That kills an entire drive. And that's what we're seeing is you start to get a drive going and a drop pass, and that's it. It's over.
Now, changing gears a little bit, Dan, The Steelers and Bills, a couple years ago, both drafted someone with the last name of Edmonds in the first round. Obviously, when it first started off, it looked like Tremaine was far and away the better pick. Terrell Edmonds has really turned it on this year. I don't know how much you've been able to watch the Steelers play it, if any. But my question to you, and I'll come back to Jeffrey on this one too. If you could only take one of those guys, Tremaine or Terrell, who would it be?
I would take Tremaine Edmonds. I think he's a star in the making. And he's, been starting middle linebacker for 3 seasons now for the Bills. And, very rare that I am disappointed with his play. He's an awesome guy. And yeah, as much as I appreciate Terrell Edmonds and his value that he's probably bringing to your team, when Tremaine Edmonds is not playing well, this defense sucks. And when he is playing well, it's one of the best in the league. So
now, Jeffrey, like I mentioned before, Terrell Edmonds turned it around. Who's your pick in that one?
Well, I'm a huge Terrell Edmonds fan, and it's easily Tremaine. That's an easy choice. Even with Devin Bush, I'd take that, and we'd have to go find another safety, but I would take that, especially now, man. If you could just send him over our way and let him be our linebacker, that would be great. It'd solve a lot of problems on our defense right now.
We suddenly have a surplus of linebackers actually at the moment. The Bills like to run 2 linebackers and nickel most of the time. Matt Milano is their usual starter alongside Edmonds, and he's been hurt a lot this season, so he's only just come back this week. In the meantime, they've got AJ Klein running in there, and Bills fans wanted him on the street about a month ago. Now he has 5 sacks, and he looks like, he just won Defensive Player of the Week a little while ago. So the Bills they're shaping up in the front 7.
Now, Dan, I know we're running out of your time here, so I'm just going to quickly hit you with a few more questions before let you get out of there. TJ Watt for the Steelers, obviously having a fantastic year, one of the betting odd favorites to win the Defensive Player of the Year award. What is it going to take for the Bills to slow him down, if that's even possible?
He's the X factor. I think the Bills are going to have to be totally assignment sound on the offensive line. They got to ID him every single play. They need to know, who's blocking him, who's double teaming him. He's going to blow things up, and all they can do is try to mitigate it. They just got to get out of his way and try to run plays while he's blowing stuff up.
Now, Dan, straight back to it. Our old friend Tyler Manikavich signs with the Bills in the offseason. How's he done since joining the guys in blue?
He's the number 1 special teams guy every week. He's taken the most snaps there. He's leading the way. The Bills special teams are excellent this year, very fundamentally sound, and I think he's a big part of that.
Okay, 2 more questions, and then we'll let you skedaddle. The question we ask everyone: if you could pluck one player off the Steelers, drop them on the Bills. The caveat here is you can't say TJ Watt, because everyone said TJ Watt, and it just kind of ruined the whole bit. So if you could take one player, not named TJ Watt, and throw him on the Bills, who would that be?
Oh man, yeah, you took mine.
Of course, everyone said that.
I would probably go with, if he were healthy, I'd want Devin Bush. That he's going to be a star someday. But I would also say Cameron Hayward. The Bills' defensive tackle situation kind of meh at the moment. They've got some talent, but it's not really gelling. And he would make such a huge difference on that team.
All right, final question for you here today, Dan. Your final score prediction for this game Sunday night. To completely put you on the spot, but what's the final score and who's winning this game?
All right, I'm going to go 24-20. I'm going to go with the Bills. It's going to be a close one.
Yeah, no, and Jeffrey and I will hit those our score breakdowns at the end of the show, but I completely agree. I think this is going to be a tightly contested game. Dan, before you get out, do you have anything you want to plug for the people tuning in right now?
I just want to shout out Buffalo Rumblings. That's the SB Nation site for the Buffalo Bills talk. You can find me on Twitter at Dan R. Lavoie, and it's been great talking with you guys.
Thank you so much, Dan. Of course, Dan Lavoie from Buffalo Rumblings. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, man.
We'll see you soon. All right, Jeffrey, getting back to our conversation 10 minutes before our break here. Talked a little bit about TJ Watt with Dan. Is he still the defensive player of the year front runner?
I don't think he has much of a chance. He could, obviously, with if he goes off with Bud down, he could do it. I don't think he's really been the front runner nationally looked at, just because he's part of a Steelers defense where they look at it and they say, okay, you've got Cam Hayward, you got TJ Watt, you got Minkah Fitzpatrick. They look at stats where it says like TJ Watt doesn't get double teamed. He just doesn't, because you can't double team him on this defensive line. Like with these guys, you can't do it. He may face more, and if he can really step it up and carry this defense, then he could. But that's the kind of game. That's what it's going to kind of take is as this defense is losing people as they're struggling. If he's out there making those plays, then he has a shot. But I don't think he's a favorite.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that one, because I don't know if you've seen too much on social media these days, but TJ is getting those graphics. He's getting all the tweets right now from a lot of those national sources. So usually when you see that with that award, because I think Stephon Gilmore had that wrapped up in like week 12, even though he kind of tailed off as the year went on. It kind of seems how it goes with those awards. They're basically already figured out by this point in the year. So I think there's a fairly good chance that TJ's in the driver's seat. Of course, there's still a month of football left to go. But Jeffrey, what scares you most about the Buffalo Bills and this game on Sunday night?
Okay, what scares me most is that their weaknesses don't really matter in this game. Like, they don't have a great pass rush. Well, Washington had a great pass rush. Did it matter? No, it really didn't. Like the way our offense is designed is to take that out of the equation. Buffalo can't stop the run. They're one of the worst run defense teams in the NFL. That doesn't matter. It really doesn't. We're not going to run the ball on them. It doesn't matter how bad they are. So that concerns me, that their biggest weaknesses really don't resonate with us. They don't run the ball well. Steelers are a great run defense team, but Buffalo's solution to that is to just not run the ball. So that they kind of take that out. They're going to throw the ball on us a lot. Like he said, they love to go 4 wide receivers. They've got a lot of depth at wide receiver. And again, to me, this game boils down to, is Joe Hayden playing? Is Joe Hayden, himself in this game? Is he good to go? Is he still having trouble from that concussion? If he's 100% and he's ready to go, and we have our 4 top cornerbacks in this game, then we win this game. That's my opinion, is that we get that. If Joe Hayden's out, though, I mean, you're relying again on Justin Lane. You're relying on guys that they're not that good. Like, Lane wasn't bad when he was filling in for Mike Hilton. This past game, he was bad. He had a really, really bad game, and they went after him all game. And if they can go 4 wide receivers and get Justin Lane out there in matchups, they're going to do it, and they're going to go after him. So Joe Hayden is incredibly important in this game.
Yeah, no, it was kind of interesting why Lane kind of took a step back. He's looked good at other points this year. Hopefully, if he's called upon, he can kind of get that under control. Maybe he's more of an inside guy. But
one of the problems was we went with a lot more zone because Robert Spillane went down, and we didn't have Avery Williamson is better in zone. You can't put Vincent Mann on a top target. So we had to the team starts going more zone, and he was getting picked apart in zone. And another problem is Robert Spillane's not going to be. I think they've already said he's out. Am I right on that? I could be completely wrong. I hope I'm not. I hope I am wrong. But if he's not going, you're going to see more zone again, because we don't really have a linebacker to match up in man, unless Ulysses Gilbert III, shows up, gets on the roster and out of the coach's doghouse and gets out there and plays more. The two problems we had this game were, we had the problems with Justin Lane in zone, and our dime defense was getting absolutely exploited this last week. I don't know what we change up. Marcus Allen didn't seem to be playing a bad game. It just seemed like we couldn't stop anyone in dime.
Speaking of this defense, and of course some of those new bodies coming in, 2 guys to chat about. UG3, if he does play, what would he mean in this team? And I don't know if you've seen too much of Cassius Marsh, the newest member of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who they plucked off the Colts practice squad today. So I believe with doing that, he has to be on the main roster for 2 weeks, I believe, before he could be sent down again. Former Seattle Seahawks, he started 9 games in the past. What do you think of those two guys being able to play, and what would it do if they had UG3 in the lineup?
UG3, if he can get in there and play, he's a man defender. He's not good in zone, but he is a really good man defender, especially against running backs and tight ends, which is exactly what the Steelers are missing right now. The problem is if the coaches don't trust him to play in zone, are they actually going to even play him? Because as long as they don't trust him to run the whole defense, they're not going to telegraph and be like, all right, UG3's on the field, we're running man. They're not going to do that. They'll just not play him and get picked apart before they'll put in a player who only does that. At least historically, that's what they do. So UG3 could be a big deal if he can get in there and play, especially if Hayden's out. UG3 would be a nice addition there. He's also a special teams player, which I don't know if that matters that much. Alex Highsmith dropped a lot of snaps, so it would be nice to have, another linebacker in there. Cassius Marsh, I don't know if he'd actually get much time. It would be interesting to see how many snaps he'd get with Alex Highsmith. And that's the thing that registers most with me, is it will be interesting to see where a guy like a Cassius Marsh can walk onto this team and rank compared to an Alex Highsmith, Olasunkanmi Adeniyi, where he will rank with those guys.
This is from Sean Smith, I see in the chat here. Something I wanted to talk about briefly is what exactly we paying Derek Watt for. When I asked Dan about Tyler Manikavich, he's obviously the special teams hole that we missed out on. That was one of the reasons why Derek Watt was brought in. Combine that with Rosie Nix missing all of last year. The reason why the Steelers brought Derek Watt in is to really get a 2-for-1. And the Steelers don't really play, for whatever reason, they don't really play a fullback in the traditional sense whatsoever. And they haven't played any sort of power type role. As much as I've been calling for it, and much as I want to see Derek Watt get the ball, I don't suspect that's going to happen anytime soon. Jeffrey, am I off base by saying that the Steelers just basically don't run formations that utilize the fullback? And has Derek Watt been enough on special teams to earn that 3-year, $9 million deal?
I think so. I think he's going to earn more of it next year. I think there's a good chance that he's our special teams captain next year. He's very, very solid, and we missed him when he was out on special teams. They are using him well in the offense when they use him. But then, like this past week, we saw a play where he was lined up as a wing back. He came underneath. He was wide open. Ben threw the ball to someone else because Vance McDonald chose not to block, Montez Sweat, and Montez Sweat was right in Ben's face, and he just had to get rid of the ball. But Derek Watt was open. He had the ball. That would have been a touchdown. I think that was in the goal line stand. And he would have had it. He would have had that touchdown. But it just didn't happen. He's not a pure fullback. He's not your guy that's just, get him in there in front of the running back and plow away. And even using him like that, it's not going to help, because our weakness in our offensive line right now, our run blocking, is our interior offensive line. It's DeCastro and Hassenhauer. It doesn't matter if you put a fullback in there. Fullback's not going to block a defensive lineman and a linebacker. Like, it's not going to happen. It's still a loss. So he's not going to fix the run game playing in the traditional positions. They are using him a little bit, but right now, big sets don't work for the Steelers. They just don't work. Every time we use them, they're bad. So he's not getting used. He's probably not going to get used, because right now they're leaning heavily on those wide receivers.
All right, if you're listening on our podcast platform, you can flip over to part 2 now. If you're hanging out with us on YouTube or Facebook, just hang tight. We're going to jump into a quick break on our podcast side. And ladies and gentlemen, we are back for part 2 of Behind the Steel Curtain's Know Your Enemy podcast, joined as always by Jeffrey Benedict. My name, of course, is Michael Beck. In part 1, we talked to Dan Lavoie of Buffalo Rumblings, just chatting more about this matchup here, both Jeffrey and myself now. Jeffrey, can the Steelers figure this running game out? I know we left off talking about the fullback, but with James Conner coming back, potentially we might even see Marquise Pouncey back in the lineup this week. Can they turn this around, or is this running game just a lost cause at this point?
Marquise Pouncey would help. I mean, Marquise Pouncey is not the Marquise Pouncey we know from 5 years ago, but he is still a pretty good run blocker, and he's a definite upgrade on what we've seen from Hassenauer. Granted, Washington has one of the better run defenses, and they have one of the better front fours in the NFL. Buffalo does not, but Hassenauer isn't that guy. He's not going to be a good run blocker. He's passable in pass blocking. He is not in run blocking. And David DeCastro hasn't been good. Those two have been awful the last 2 weeks. They have just been getting blown up consistently on most run plays. They have a few bright spots. There are a few times you can see them get a double team and get pushed. Most of the time, it's not there. I'm still wondering what it would take. Like, there's kind of a little debate among. I don't know if you've seen it on our group chats, but there's been debate. What will it take for Kevin Dotson to get in the lineup? It would take an injury, in my opinion. I don't think DeCastro. I think DeCastro is in that category where he would have to take himself out. Steelers aren't going to bench him. And same with Marquise Pouncey last year. As bad as he was playing last year, if he's healthy, he's in there because he's earned that. That's how I think that's kind of how they view it. Like, you've done enough, you're in there. We'll trust you to figure it out. But right now, DeCastro is bad. I'd love to see Dotson in there, but even Dotson wouldn't help right now if Hassenauer's in there. You're going to need to get Pouncey back. You're going to need to get either DeCastro healthy or Dotson in there. And even then, you're going to have to change up some of the offense. We've seen some rays of hope. We've seen Ben under center. We saw a play action touchdown, the first of the year, the first play action touchdown, the first touchdown not out of the shotgun all year was with Ben with that play action pass in against Baltimore. That was nice. Or that was the Jaguars. So we've seen some hope. We've seen some glimmers of hope. These drops by the receivers might get some things changed. But right now, no. Like, the running game is kind of just dead.
Now, you talked about the offensive linemen in the interior there. Matt Filer on that left side. I've seen some clips where he's also struggled. What's going on with him? He was always kind of, when he came in the NFL, he was a guard. Then he bumped out to tackle. Looked really, really good. He was arguably the best offensive lineman the Steelers had last year. Then he moves back to guard this year, and he seems to be struggling a bit. Is he playing out of position? Is he more of a tackle now, or what's going on with Matt Filer?
Well, early on, Alejandro Villanueva is harder to play next to than other tackles. He's different. He just plays the position differently than other tackles do. He's a little harder to play next to. I think that hurt Filer early this year. They were looking bad early. They've been looking better. And then against Washington, the Allen, whatever his name is, but Washington's defensive lineman, Allen, he just destroyed Matt Filer so many times. He just owned him, and that's out. That's him. That's what he does. He had that. Filer is very strong. Allen just kicked his butt. Like, he just really did. So I don't know if that's just a matchup issue where he just got owned that game and he'll be back and he'll be fine. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I know this offense line, it's been interesting because Ben continues to not take sacks. Is that due to him getting rid of the ball so fast, or why has Ben Roethlisberger not been sacked in like more than a month and a half now at this point?
This offensive line is built to protect the quarterback. They focus on that. The offense, the design, everything is set up to protect Ben. And he does get rid of the football faster than anybody. I think last check it was he's a whole tenth of a second faster than second place, which in those kind of measurements is a pretty significant difference. So I think mostly I would say 80% Ben on that is the offense and Ben getting rid of the ball quick, and 20% is the actual pass blocking being good. They're good pass blockers across the board. I mean, Chukwuezeokorafor was a pass blocker who couldn't run block. and suddenly he's one of their more decent run blockers on that line. David DeCastro can still pass block. He can't run block right now. Filer's always been a very solid pass blocker, and Alejandro Villanueva never gives up sacks. He just doesn't. It seems like he just doesn't ever give up a sack.
Yeah, no, I'll give Big Al a lot of credit. He bounced back from a down year a year ago. I think he just has more I don't know, him and Ben just play on a deeper level. I think he just kind of understands where Ben is in his drops more frequently. But with all that being said, relating this offense to this upcoming game against the Bills, how are the Steelers going to be able to move the ball, and will they have a successful day moving the ball? Because this is another good defense.
Well, here's the positive marks. The Bills are one of the worst defensive teams against deep balls this season. They give up the most yards per deep ball attempt. They do have the third highest rate of interceptions on deep passes, but they give up some of the most deep ball yardage in the NFL. They're better against short routes. They're not great. The short routes we love to run all the time. They're better against those than they are deep routes, and they force fumbles. I think they have 4 forced fumbles this year that they've recovered against short passes. So they will they'll rip the ball out. I would love to see this be a game where the Steelers just really do take teams to task for playing in the box, for playing up close to the line, and playing off that quick release that Ben is doing, and really, really go downfield. The Bills don't have a great pass rush. They're not good against deep balls. Take them to it. Hold the ball that tenth of a second or 0.2 of a second longer, and let these guys get open, and let's do something. I would absolutely love to see them use Chase Claypool this game at the X, get him away from Tre'Davious White, and get him out there and let him run. Let him run, let him get into that secondary, mess with those safeties. We've seen it numerous times. We saw it even in Washington. There was a play. He ended up on a safety, and there was no contest there. It's no contest. If he gets on a safety, it's over. It's over. You've won that. They just got to get him going, and I think this is a good game to do it.
Now, you bring up Chase Claypool. His snaps fell off last week. Did you see anything in the film that would explain that? Because Chase didn't seem to be the guy that's having the problem with the drop. So what kind of went into that decision, or did you even see one?
Yeah, it didn't make sense to me at all. It really did. Like, they just kind of gave up on running deep routes, and Washington was like, "We'll put one safety deep and jam up, everyone up front," and the Steelers aren't attacking that. And the one time they do, they run 3 verticals on a 4th and 1, and they throw it to Anthony McFarland. Some of it doesn't seem to make sense when you watch the defense. There were plays where the middle of the field was open from the start. Like, they're really not. There's the deep safety, and that's it. That's all that's in the middle of the field. There's all kinds of room for slants and work underneath. They just weren't throwing it. And some of the plays, there weren't even routes going into the middle of the field. So they've got to think about how they do this offense. And I think one of the big problems is how much they're relying on Ben Roethlisberger to call the plays and to make up plays, even like he says he's been doing in that no huddle offense. They seem to go heavily with that, and it was great until teams catch on. You can't just constantly do that.
Now, what do you think the reason is for that? Is that because Ben is drawing it up, or, excuse me for being blunt, is Randy Fichtner incompetent?
I'm not going to say Randy Fichtner is incompetent. He's pretty solid. We've seen some creativity. We see some willingness to experiment from him. The problem is reinventing this offense in a way that still works with Ben. I want to say this, and it sounds like I'm criticizing Ben, but when Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay and they were running Bruce Arians' offense, he was not good. And they brought plays from New England and instilled more of them in the offense. He did better. When Peyton Manning went to Denver, he brought his entire offense with him. Ben has a style that fits him. And if you're asking a quarterback at 38 years old who's been doing been running one offense kind of, like one style of offense, to be like, we're going to change up how you read things. We're going to change up how you do your footwork. It's not going to work. It has to fit with what Ben Roethlisberger does. So I'm not going to blame Randy Fichtner too much. I will say for what they're doing with Ben is they're trusting him too much. And it's the same thing we saw in 2005 with Peyton Manning and Dick LeBeau, where Dick LeBeau picked up the tendencies Peyton Manning had. Peyton Manning goes up to the line of scrimmage, yells Omaha, flaps his arms like a bird. And the Steelers are like, yeah, we know you're not running it. We know you're not running it. And we kind of know where you're throwing it too. We kind of have an idea of what you're going to audible to based on what we look like. And it just, I used to talk about it at the time about like when you watch the movie The Waterboy and the one guy has like the Coaching Football for Idiots book and is like laughing as he's pointing out what the other team's going to do. Like that's what a great defensive coordinator isn't going to be fooled by a quarterback. The quarterback has tendencies. They have ways they're going to do it. If you don't have an offensive coordinator who's sitting there out of the field, off the field, looking at it, making the play calls and playing that chess game, you can't ask Ben Roethlisberger to play, chess at the same point that he's playing football. He's out there getting hit. He's in the moment. He's seeing that. You can't ask him to also be winning a chess match.
Now, one of Ben's favorite targets this year, Deontay Johnson, he's getting the ball thrown at him a ton. And he's also one of the biggest culprits when it comes to dropping the football. And he's done it consistently all year. It's not just been a recent issue, although it's kind of been multiplied because of how bad it's been. Do you think Deontay is going to kind of fall out of favor with the offense here pretty quickly, or is he even going to be Ben's top target as we move into December and January?
I think he stays there. I really do. Santonio Holmes used to drop balls. Ben still threw to him. When Antonio Brown first started coming on in 2011, he had like a third the yards of Mike Wallace and more targets. And his catch rate was in the 40s. And it was awful. He was absolutely playing awful. But he was getting open and Ben was throwing him the ball. Second half of that season, at some point AB starts clicking and the production catches up to the targets. Ben is that kind of guy. If you are running the routes the way he wants, if he's got that connection with you and he knows where you're going to be, he's going to throw it to you. The problem with Deontay Johnson is that ball's got to hit him in the numbers. If it's down by his legs, if it's up, especially if it's up like here, if it's here or here, he's not catching it. He's just not going to catch it. I go back to when he was drafted. I did a film room on him and I was like, well, he has a tendency of dropping balls that are at head height. It just was a problem that showed up on film. It's still there. It's still a glaring problem that's on film, shows up every week. He's dropping those passes. You can't do that. You can't do that. He has to work that out of his game somehow. He hasn't yet, and it's a problem.
Now, before we relate this back to the Bills game, Eric Ebron's the other guy. That's it's been an issue with him for his entire career in Detroit and Indianapolis. Eric Ebron, he's a big playmaker, but he'll drop some brutal passes that are inexplicable at times. And he's done that the last couple of weeks. It's really kind of grown exponentially for one Mr. Eric Ebron. Is he someone that's going to start losing those snaps to Vance McDonald? And is he even going to see the second year of his contract?
I think he'll sort it out. I think Ebron will be all right. Again, his are almost very specific. He does have drop problems, but if you look, almost all of his drops, he's got his back to the defense. He's facing Ben. The ball comes right and hits him in his hands, but he's got that like looking over his shoulder, like, oh, I'm about to take a hit. Just stop throwing those to him. Just stop throwing those to him. Like put Vance in, like find a way to not run Eric Ebron in a stupid 5-yard stop route where he just stops and turns. Because every single time he does that, he's like, oh, he's looking over his shoulder because he thinks he's going to get hit. He's taken a lot of hits this year. He's playing a lot more snaps. He is still on pace to set his career record for snap count. Just, ease off on him. Where he is his best is when he is running deeper routes. Run him deeper routes. It doesn't matter if you throw to him. Put him next to James Washington. Run James Washington on a short route. Run Eric Ebron on a longer route. And make stuff happen. Just stop Eric Ebron short. Just stop it. I don't see why you do that. Any linebacker can cover a 4-yard sharp stop route from Eric Ebron. Anybody. Vince Williams can cover that. That's not a problem. It's when he's actually running deeper routes, when he's doing posts and he's doing slants and seam routes, run those with him. That's where he's dangerous, and that's where he catches the ball more.
Now, this game against Buffalo, obviously, Mike Tomlin's basically said, like, whoever catches the ball is going to be the guys that are playing the downs. Against Buffalo, if you had to predict one player to be that leading receiver, who do you think it's going to be?
I think they go back to Chase Claypool. I don't think it's going to be James Washington. They really solved him. Tre'Davious White absolutely destroyed him last year when he was doing really good, and Devlin Hodges and him had chemistry, and he was carrying. James Washington was carrying Devlin Hodges at that point in the season, and Tre'Davious White just refused to touch James Washington, followed him, and played the ball. And James couldn't do anything against that because he's not fast enough. He doesn't have enough change of direction to beat a guy with the footwork and crazy athleticism that Tre'Davious White had. They can shut James Washington down. They know how to do that. I really think it would be Chase Claypool. I've seen nothing at all that tells me that the Steelers are going to use Juju Smith-Schuster better, where they're going to get him a little deeper. They only throw him the ball on like when it's 1 or 2 yards past the line of scrimmage and go fight for a first down. That's all they really do, and it's frustrating to me to watch because there's plays he's open, there's plays he has leverage on guys where he makes those catches. Those are catches the guy makes, and like the one this week, the one against Washington where he was in triple coverage and took a nasty shot to the head, guy's elbow right to his face, like to his helmet. He was open. Ben just threw it late. Like Ben threw him into coverage when he was open on that seam route. He had it. And Ben just was like, nah, okay, now I'll throw it. And Juju's getting crushed. So something's happened there. Juju and Ben are not on the same page right now. So I'm going to go Chase Claypool. I'm going to go Chase Claypool because Buffalo gives up deep yards.
Before we chat a little bit more about the Steelers' defense in this game, just kind of looking at this offense as a whole, I know for me it's been incredibly frustrating at times, just how they're trying to move the ball. Do you feel the same way? Do you feel that frustration?
Absolutely. It is incredibly frustrating to watch this offense right now. And especially when I heard, like, because it looks to fans, we look at it and we say, we know what we're doing. Like, my sister's like, they should just triple team Deontay Johnson because that's the only person Ben's going to throw to. Like, she'll say stuff like that, and I'm like, no, that's not true. And then I'll be like, okay, well, maybe that is true, actually. But, like, they need – oh, gosh, my brain. That's fun. But they've got to stop being predictable. Washington came out and said it. Their defenders came out and said it. They looked at Pittsburgh's offensive tendencies, and they kind of knew what we were running. They kind of knew what to expect. You can't have that. We don't have the talent to beat that anymore. One of the comparisons I wanted to make was Josh Allen has Stephon Diggs now, and he talked about how Stephon Diggs put all of those guys lower, so everyone's better this year. Stephon Diggs is that number one guy. Josh Allen has chemistry with him. He trusts him, and it puts everyone else a step lower where the defense is paying less attention to them and they're better. Ben doesn't have that guy. We've been talking about that. Chase Claypool has all the talent. Him and Ben aren't on the same page yet, so he can't be the number one guy. He's just not there. They're not connecting right. Like it's not fully there yet. Deontay Johnson's dropping passes. James Washington and Ben have never really had it. And Juju and Ben don't seem to have it. They don't have a number one receiver right now. And when they had Antonio Brown, it was okay if you kind of knew what was coming because you still couldn't stop it. You couldn't stop Ben to Antonio. They were so good together that it didn't matter that you knew what route was coming. And if you knew what route was coming and you brought enough help there, other stuff was open. There's no one like that right now. And I think more than anything, it's messing with Benjamin Roethlisberger. It's messing with how he is approaching plays. It's messing with how he's approaching the offense. He's looking for that guy. I think one of the reasons he's force-feeding Deontay Johnson is he's trying to make Deontay that guy. He's trying to say, hey, I have faith in you. I have trust in you. Start catching these and let's do this. It's just not happening yet.
Oh, Benjamin Todd. I think they'll figure something out, but Man, it's one of the most frustrating things I think we can both completely agree on. But flipping over to the defensive side, one young Mr. Alex Highsmith makes his first NFL start last week. How did he look in that first start, and what do you expect from him in game number 2 against Buffalo?
He was solid. He was really solid. His day was kind of dwarfed by Cam Hayward, just absolutely going off in that game. Cam Hayward was just taking their guard and driving him into the quarterback. And when they gave him a double team, he took both of them into the quarterback. Like, Cam Hayward was dominating that game. Highsmith had a solid game. He had a couple of really good pressures, but Alex Smith, especially in the second half, was getting rid of the ball so quickly. He was doing a really good job of taking away our pass rush. The only times we really got him were on plays where he held the ball too long and the Steelers kept pocket contained. That was the only problems he had. Highsmith had a solid game. Highsmith was solid. He played a lot more snaps than he has before. I think I mentioned it in my snap count article, but we had 4 players set career snap count records in that game with Ola Sukanmi Adeniyi, Alex Highsmith, Cameron Sutton, and Justin Lane. Highsmith was the best of those 4. And so I can tell you that much.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, no. And this entire defensive unit, what are you kind of expecting Buffalo to try to attack here?
I think they're gonna spread us out. They're really gonna do 4 wide receivers. If Joe Hayden isn't out there, I know I'm harping on this, but this is that big of a game changer. If Joe Hayden isn't out there, Justin Lane is out there, and that's your game right there. That's your strategy. What's your strategy? Who's on Justin Lane, what's his responsibility, and how do we attack him? Because they're going to test him. He had a bad game on film. The other team's going to look at that and say, you know what, we're coming at him. Hopefully he can come and have a big improved game. He's much better in man, in my opinion, than he is in zone at this point. And I'd love to see him bounce back. But if he's out there, that's where you attack it. If Joe Hayden is out there and they're playing, then Buffalo has a tougher thing. You're gonna see probably a lot more looking to get running backs and tight ends involved. You're gonna see a lot more of that depth receivers getting targeted because everything's harder when this defense is healthy. When that secondary is healthy, it's not easy to move the ball.
Now, Avery Williamson and Vince Williams look to be the starting duo at the middle of the field this week and play a high percentage of those passes, or those snaps, rather. What do you kind of expect from those two guys together, and what will the defense have to do to make sure those two guys have a successful day?
You said the 2 linebackers?
The 2 linebackers, the Williamson.
Yeah. I like what I've seen from Avery Williamson as – he reminds me of a slightly more responsible version of Mark Barron. He's mostly a middle zone guy. What they like him in is just that linebacker short zone, which is sad because I'd like to see us use more man this game, especially if Lane is in there. But I think we're gonna see them be all right. We're probably gonna see more dime because of it. If they're going 4 wide receivers, we like to run a lot of nickel against 4 wide receivers, but you don't want those 2 out there with against 4 wide receivers. You don't want Vince out there right now. And if they're willing to do that, there's your target. That's the guy. You're pointing a sign at a place on the field and saying, Buffalo, attack this. So I don't think we'll see that as much. I'd love to see some UG3 mixed in. They've been trying to limit Vince's snaps ever since Devin Bush went out. Devin Bush and Vince were great together because Bush just handled everything past the line of scrimmage, and Vince could attack everything. But that's not the case now. So I think Avery Williamson will be all right. I don't think – what I'm trying to say is they didn't fit well together with Washington and against Washington. Avery Williamson and Vince Williams, they didn't seem to gel well once, and especially once Hayden was out and they could attack Vince Williams. It looked bad.
Yeah, no, this is going to be a great audition for Avery Williamson, if I can get that out. Of course, he's in a contract year, so we know he's got a lot to play for, and who knows, he might earn himself a second contract in Pittsburgh to be a backup guy, or if Vince Williams takes a step back, he could be like Avery Williamson's been a stud his last 2 teams, so perhaps that might be the next option in the future. But that's more to something to keep an eye on as the year goes on. But as we head to the top of the hour here, let's get to our usual quartet of ending questions. The old plug one player off the Bills and throw him on the Steelers. Who's that one guy for you?
I'm bringing Terrell's brother. I'm bringing Tremaine Edmonds over, especially right now.
Oh yeah,
I'm okay pairing him with Devin Bush, in the future, but right now, absolutely Tremaine Edmonds.
Yeah, I know. I definitely agree with that. Then especially because we'll end up having all the Watts and all the Edmonds at the end of the year.
Yeah. It's hard though, because I really think Josh Allen is the second coming of Ben Roethlisberger. He's the closest thing I've seen to him, and he's showing he has it. It would be very tempting to take him and be like, you know what, we're going to go back in time and just do this all over again.
That was going to be my pick. Josh Allen. You know what? Josh Allen's going to win an MVP in his career. He's Ben Roethlisberger who runs like a 4.5.
Yeah.
That's what that
Ben
comes
was
down
like
to.
throwing defensive linemen to the ground. Josh Allen just runs away from him.
Oh, exactly. It's like Aaron Rodgers being Kurt Warner that's mobile. It's just like the second coming of that player. And all of a sudden they go from a Hall of Famer to Mount Rushmore type. And Josh Allen he has potential to do that. And I think if the Bills are ever going to win a Super Bowl, because we all know Bills stands for boy, I love losing Super Bowls. They certainly could do it with Josh Allen. But as we move along here, X factor for the game. What do you expect in this one?
X factor is going to be the pass rush. 100%. Yeah. Alex Highsmith, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Stephon Tuitt. Somebody's got to step up, have a huge game. Cam Hayward's been having them, but it's just not getting home. So I'd love to see Stephon Tuitt play a more responsible game. And I'd love to see Alex Highsmith get something going, really, really get something going in the pass rush, because if Bud Dupree had been there in that Washington game, he would have been feasting, because Cam was just destroying people. And when Cam Hayward destroys people, that's when Bud Dupree has a great game. It was always the case. Bud Dupree has a great game. Cam Hayward's destroying people, and he's destroying people.
Yeah, my X factor I think would be the drop passes. If they could have 3 or less, that's still a lot of drop passes, but 3 or less, I think they beat Washington, and I think they absolutely blow the barn doors off Baltimore. If that's if you can pick and choose what those catches are.
No, is that 3 drops per receiver you're allowing?
No, that's 3 total.
that's what they've been doing. They've been doing the 3 each.
Exactly. Just Me throws $5 in the tip jar. She says, "Can we get all the Watts too?" Great show, guys. Thank you, Just Me, for the $5. You know what? If JJ Watt gets his wish and ends up looking for a new team, that guy's got sponsorship money out the wazoo. If he wants to play for a championship contender, and you know how tight the Watts are, I wouldn't be surprised, even if it was to be to battle with Alex Highsmith as the other outside rusher, like legitimately. He wouldn't be a backup, but I think you might find another role for Alex Highsmith to play in. But
you would not.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun though. Both Watts and then Hayward and Tuitt in the middle.
You'd have 3 guys who can go outside and play defensive end and edge rush, and also play defensive tackle. Yeah, and they'd all just be absolute line wreckers. Yeah. I'd go 3-3. I'd be like, TJ, you're playing off the ball. Because
just let him blitz whatever get
on one side, TJ on the other, and be like, who's gonna just every week have his mom call and be like, who's gonna get more sacks this week?
Oh man, the show would have to be sponsored by Subway if we get all 3 Watts.
Yeah,
I tell you what, if we get the 3rd Watt, I'm going to message their family every single day until we can have our guest spot be either mom or dad come on every single week with us.
That'd be great.
Couple more things before we get out. Of course, our final score prediction in this one. We've been picking the Steelers a lot this year. Do things change against Buffalo, who's been surging as the Steelers have been struggling?
This one's one I don't like to make. I don't think Hayden comes back, and this is my caveat. Again, if Hayden is playing, Steelers win this. That's my opinion. I don't think he is, and I'm going to go 31-20 Buffalo.
Ooh, a big deficit in that game. That is outstanding on that one. I said I was going to pick the Steelers every single game. I think like 2 weeks ago, but no, with how bad they've played, I legitimately cannot pick the Steelers in good faith. Either Ben's got to just be on fire. He has been playing good though, so that's what makes it tough. Like, could the Steelers randomly find a running game? I suppose, but I guess James Conner's just going to have to come in and do something incredible and just make the first guy miss behind the line of scrimmage. But I'm not sure if it's going to be an 11-point game, but I'm going to go Buffalo 21, Pittsburgh 20. Tight game. I'm a little nervous in this one. It's possible, but boy, this is the first time I don't have faith. As we get to the top of the hour here, what kind of great stuff can we expect from you coming out in the coming days at Behind the Steel Curtain, Jeffrey?
Well, we just Dave Schofield and I just finished a Vertex on the Washington running back who just was the best, had the most receiving yards we've given up for quite a while to a running back. And that covers so much more than that. That covers Robert Spillane, that covers Vince Williams, and it covers a lot because he asked me to look into that, and I was like down the rabbit hole for a day and a half. And then I've got one coming out, and I had one just come out that was on the defense and how well the defense played. I had a film room on that. And I'm hoping to get one out later talking about the offense, talking in depth about the offense, what's wrong with it, and really, how do we fix this, asking those questions.
And as we come to the end of our show here, I just want to remind everyone to click over to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. All your great insight, analysis, and breakdown of pregame, postgame, everything in between. It's your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. So make sure you're clicking over to our website. Also, make sure to listen to our entire family of podcasts. You can catch us here on YouTube, now also streaming live on Facebook, and you can download our podcasts and listen to them anywhere you get your podcast from. For my co-host Jeffrey Benedict, my name is Michael Beck. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week.